Hello and welcome. My name is Susan and I'm an artist and educator here in Baltimore. And today we're going to make tie-dye t-shirt tote bags together. So we are gonna make a fun bag, looks like this. We're gonna first just tie-dye the cotton t-shirt in your art kit, and then I'll show you how to cut and tie it up to make this fun bag that you can take with you to the park or the pool or wherever you're going this summer. So go ahead and cover your table or your workspace with the plastic table covering or a garbage bag. And let's take a look at your materials that you'll need, and then we'll get started. So go ahead and grab a white cotton t-shirt, Ziploc bags and rubber bands, an aluminum pan, plastic gloves, tie-dye bottles from your art kit, and either paper towels or a rag that can get stained, and scissors. So our first step is to get your t-shirt wet. So I have gone and got this wet in my sink. So make sure it's really wet. It's got every little part of your shirt gets wet, but then it's time to squeeze out the extra water. So I'm doing this in a bucket in my studio, but of course you can just do this right in your sink. So make sure it's not super wet and drippy all over the place. And this makes sure that the tie-dye, when it touches the fabric, it really gets all soaked up. And it works better when it's wet than when it's dry. All right, let's go over to your workspace and get ready to tie-dye. So now I'm going to show you a few different ways to tie your t-shirt to create different patterns with tie-dye. And it's totally up to you what you choose, which way you choose to tie your shirt. So this way is called the star. So we are going to take 5 different parts of the t-shirt. So I'm just kind of going around the edge of the t-shirt and making 5 little sections. Think of like a starfish. Or a 5-point gold star. All right, so now there's 5 sections, and I'm just gonna twist around each one. So the folds in the t-shirt are gonna make a cool design later on. So we got them twisted. There's 4. There's 5. Okay, so now we gotta take some rubber bands, and we want to tie each of these 5 points of the star, but it doesn't have to be super duper tight. It just needs to sort of hold together. So I think I'll just wrap it around twice. I might put, because these sections are kind of long, I might put 2 rubber bands on each one, but they're kind of loose. If you feel like it's too loose, you can do another one. So everywhere that the rubber band goes, there's going to be a little bit of a white spot. And so you can tell that since it's all twisted up, the rubber band touches the t-shirt at different places. It's going to give you a cool, unpredictable pattern. Fun part of working with textiles and dyeing with tie-dye. All right, I wrapped that one around 3 times and made it stretch all the way down. Now I'm on number 4. And the last side of my star. All right, and then this is up to you, but I am going to put a couple in the middle just to add a little bit more pattern in there, since it will be a big open place. So that'll kind of give it some cool stuff going on there. Okay, so this way to tie your shirt is called the caterpillar, or at least I call it the caterpillar. So we're gonna take both ends and we're gonna start to kind of twist them. So you want them to be twisting kind of in the opposite direction and holding the other side while you twist one side might help. So you just want it to be nice and twisty. You can see it, maybe it looks a little bit like a candy cane with the lines that are it's making right there. And we're just gonna take a few rubber bands, maybe like, I don't know, 5, it's up to you. And we're gonna loosely tie them around. I'm gonna twist it around twice for each rubber band. I might spread the rubber bands out a little bit. All right, so there's 3. They're not super tight, but tight enough to help hold it together. Remember, if the rubber bands are really tight, there's nothing wrong with that. It's gonna leave a little bit more white space on your t-shirt. So if you want more white space, make your rubber bands tighter. Okay, so here we go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little sections. So if you wanted to use this pattern, now would be the time, of course, putting on gloves. And I'm gonna put the aluminum tin under here. And now would be the time to squeeze a little bit out. I'm not gonna do it on my shirt because I'm gonna use a different pattern. But you could just squeeze right on top of each of those rubber bands. And maybe use a different color for each one to help you make kind of a stripy pattern. And you would probably want to do it on the back too. So using your gloves so that you don't stain your fingers, flip it over and also soak it in the back. We don't need a puddle in the aluminum pan. We just need to make sure that the t-shirt is soaked through, and I'll show you in a little bit when I do mine. Okay, and this way to tie is called the swirl. So just for fun, if you want to grab a clean fork from your house, don't worry, it won't get any dye on it. And this is really kind of optional, but it can help. So I'm gonna take the fork and actually just twist it around. So it might be helpful. You may need 2 hands to help as you twist it. I call this the swirl. This will give you kind of like a classic t-shirt swirl look. So if you've seen t-shirts that are tie-dye and they have just one big swirl that goes across the whole shirt, that's what this one will give you. So I'm gonna kind of tuck it around, and then we're gonna put a few rubber bands all the way across in different directions. It's gonna look like a pie. So we're making a bunch of pie slices. Okay, so if you were to use this one, if you wanted that big swirl look on your t-shirt, then I'm gonna tuck in these edges of the shirt right there. So this is a perfect pattern if you want to make that big swirl. And if you choose this one, of course, like we talked about, you'll want to put it in the aluminum tin. You want to put your gloves on. I'm not going to use this one right now, so I'm not putting on my gloves. But you would want to just take your die and soak each pie slice. So you can decide how many colors you want. You don't have to use all your colors. You could just use 2, you could use 3, you could use 1 for each section. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sections. So I say I want to use light green. So I would squeeze a light green on here, and then I would flip it over and squeeze the light green on the same pie slice. So it's green on this side and green on that side. But first I would do all the sections at once in whatever colors I wanted to use, and then I would flip it over, of course using my gloves. And that will make a cool swirly look. Okay, so now it's time to choose which way you want to tie your shirt. And then go ahead and choose which colors you want from the color selection you have in your art kit. So I decided I want to use the star pattern, and I'm gonna put it onto the aluminum tin pan. And for this pattern, I'm gonna take off, using my gloves of course, I'm gonna take off the top. And make sure you don't lose this. Put this in a safe place right next to you. Those are easy to lose. They'll roll on the floor. So now I'm gonna just squeeze this in little spots. I'm actually not gonna worry too much about anything being perfect here. So if you're using the star, you can put one color on each side of the star if you want. I'm kind of gonna make stripes on each of these points of the star, and I'm going back and forth to make sure it's extra soaked with dye. And I'm leaving some space to add more colors. You can always overlap colors, but it looks really nice too if they're not overlapped too much, because it might make it brighter. Okay, so now I'm gonna turn it over, and just like with the pie slice, I'm gonna put the purple on the back to kind of make sure it's on the same spot where I put it on the front. All right, now I'm actually gonna put this over here, and it's okay because my table is covered with plastic. And I'm actually gonna take a paper towel and wipe up the dye. And this is so that it doesn't bleed too much and the colors stay like what I want them to be. Okay, so I'm gonna take green next. I'm gonna give this another shake just to be sure. There's a little bit of powder on the bottom. All right, we're good to go. So next I think I'm gonna do green right next to the purple on all of the sides of the star. I don't know, I'm just kind of playing around. The fun thing about tie-dye is it's a little unpredictable. So you can plan out your colors and plan out your pattern. In the end, it's important to remember it might come out a little different than we expect. And that's pretty cool. This is a good time to see what happens when colors blend. See, I have some green and purple mixing together there. And maybe they're not the best of friends. They turn a little bit brownish, but that's okay. So I'm gonna put the cap back on that one. I'm gonna get another little paper towel. I'm gonna pick up my star. Whoops. And I'm gonna wipe it. Get ready for the next color. I'm going to use this teal color, or actually I think it's more green. On these bottles you can tell that's the color that's going to come out in the little square. And then you can also look at the top. That gives you a good preview of what color it's going to be. Just shake it one more time. Making sure that all the powder is dissolved will help make sure that it's the brightest it can possibly be when it comes out on your shirt. Okay, so since this is a green, I think it will blend really nice with that light green. So I'm going to put it next to that one. Twist it around. I'm squeezing a lot of dye, but at the same time, I'm not making a really big puddle. I'm just squeezing it right on the fabric. Twist it. All right, now turn it over. Alright, and put the cap on it. I'll wipe off the pan. Do one, maybe two more colors. I'm going to see how much space I have. So I have this kind of pinkish red color. I want to put that in the middle, close to the purple. Purple and pink and reds mixed together really nice. I'm squeezing a lot on there. It's soaking into the t-shirt. Okay, turning it over. I'm putting it on some white space and also letting it overlap onto the purple. And that's about how much dye I used. So you can keep an eye if you're going to be making several t-shirts. Maybe, use a third or a half of the bottle for each shirt. It'll be different for everyone based on what colors you use, what pattern you used to tie. Okay, I'm going to reuse this paper towel. That'll be okay. Wipe up here too. Wipe my Ziplocs. All right, and I do think I have space for that last color, so I'm gonna give this a shake. This is a nice orangey color, and I want that to be the center of my t-shirt. So I'm gonna really soak the middle there, and I'm letting it overlap with the pink. Pink and oranges blend together well too. You can even let it soak in for a second and squeeze some more. And I can see around here that I left some white space. So if you notice that your t-shirt has white space that's hanging out, easy to see, you can choose if you want that to be there or if you want to add some more dye. I think I might add a little bit more of the greens. Oops, I forgot to wipe it up before I change colors. That way it doesn't blend too much. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more of this light green and maybe even on the edge, overlapping with the dark green. And then I'm going to call it done for now. We'll go to the next step. Remember, the white space is what gives it a cool pattern, so you don't want to cover up all the white space. I just put a little bit more on there just for fun. All right, so now it's time to wrap these up in your plastic bags. And if you're using the star pattern like I am, first I'm gonna wipe up this extra dye. This is a good time to make sure that your caps are on all of your bottles. I have one roll on the floor. I knew that was gonna happen. All right, I put all the caps on my bottles. I'm wiping up the extra dye on my plastic. Okay, so if you're using the star pattern, this is an option. You can put each of the points of the star in its own little baggie. And what that does is just kind of separate it so that when it's sitting in a plastic bag, those different points of the star, they don't blend together. So I'm just kind of putting it on there, and then I don't need it one for every side, because if there's some that aren't covered in a plastic bag, they're gonna be inside the big bag on top. So that just helps the colors not blend more than we want them to. So now that I wrapped up some of the points on the star, I put it all in one big bag. I'm gonna squish out the air as much as possible and zip it really tightly. I'm still wearing my gloves because there's still some dye around here. All right, so that looks good. Now I'm gonna take a paper towel, wipe off my workspace. So it always helps to wipe it up a little bit so that it's just dry, and it's easier to clean up if everything's just dry. So now I'm gonna take off my plastic gloves. Oh, actually, I'm gonna make sure there's no more dye on my plastic bag. I'll wipe that off. And on the other side. Okay, so now I'm gonna put my trash here. I'm gonna take off my plastic gloves. You will wanna save those for later too. And then now we wait. So this is the dye setting into the fabric, and it needs to sit here for like half a day, 6 to 8 hours maybe at least. If you want to leave it overnight, if you're going off to do other things today, you can leave it overnight and then come back the next day, and we're gonna rinse it out and turn it into a tote bag. Welcome back. Here's my finished tie-dye t-shirt. You can see the design that was created using the star pattern. I think it looks pretty awesome. I'm excited to turn it into a bag next. So when you're ready to rinse out your shirt, just make sure you run it under clean water and until there's no more dye that's coming out. So until the water is totally clear as it's coming out of your shirt. So I left mine in the bag for about 12 hours. It wasn't totally overnight. But it was a good amount of time, and all the dye got soaked in there. And then I rinsed it out in the bathroom sink until there was no more dye coming out. And then I actually threw mine in the dryer. So you can hang dry it. You can even put it in the washing machine if you want to, just to make sure all the dye is out. But if you do that, make sure that it's the only thing in the wash at the same time. So when you have a clean and dry shirt, it is time to get started turning it into a tote bag. Here we go. So first thing, grab your scissors from your art kit And we're gonna take off the sleeves of your shirt. So just hold it down with one hand. You can really use any scissors that you have. If you have fabric scissors, you could use those, but any scissors work just fine. I'm gonna cut off the sleeve here. We're not gonna use the sleeve, so if there's something that you think you could repurpose these sleeves for, that would be pretty cool. I wonder what you could use this fabric for. Okay, that goes to the side. So there's one sleeve. Here's the next. We can clean this up a little later. So I have a bit of a rough edge right there, so I'll probably go back later and clean it up a little. Okay, so this is actually gonna become two handles for your bag. So we're gonna cut the collar off, and this will be the opening of your bag at the top. So I'm just gonna follow along the line of the front of the collar. Once you take the collar off, you can go back later if you want to change the shape a little bit. You can totally do that. It's better to take off less at first and then go back and take off more than to take off too much in the beginning. Okay, there we go. Have a little bit of a rough edge right there too, so I'm gonna clean that up a bit later. Next, we're gonna cut the bottom, this hem line. We're gonna cut that right off the shirt. I'm already thinking about what I might use this for. Maybe put it in a weaving or use it as a tie for something. Okay, so now your t-shirt might look a little bit more like a tank top now. So we are gonna flip it inside out. And actually, you could flip it inside out from the beginning. Either way works. And we're gonna start cutting the bottom. So where you just cut off that hem, we're gonna cut a bunch of little slits in your t-shirt. So these should be at least as long as your scissors right here, the blade of your scissors. It could be a little bit longer, and we're going for 1 to 2 inches. So I'm gonna even cut the side of that there. So 1 to 2 inches wide, and I don't know, 2 to 3 inches tall. It doesn't have to be exact. You just don't want it to be too small, that's it. So we don't want really small, tiny little strips at the bottom of your shirt. You want some wider pieces because next we will tie these together. And on that last one, make sure you don't forget about the side. So where the shirt was folded over, I'm just gonna cut right there too. All right, so next we're gonna take each of those little strips that you cut. I'm gonna make that a little longer. We're gonna tie a double, maybe a triple knot if you want to be sure. So we're gonna start with a 2 on the edge, the front and the back, and tie a knot here. And then another one. And just go down the line. So don't skip any little pieces of t-shirt. Just do one after the next. You're almost done here. Last 2. So it's already making a fun little fringe at the bottom. right, there we go. So you could either, if you like this as a fringe at the bottom of your bag, you can use this as the outside, or you could flip it inside out. And this becomes the bottom of your bag. So you can tell there's gonna be like some little opening, so it's a good idea not to carry anything little tiny in there, but it's great for larger items, things that aren't too heavy. You did it! I hope you love using your tie-dye t-shirt tote bag, and we will be back next week with a brand new project, so stay tuned. Have a great week.